loved one. It's www.reunion.com. And we're back now with Norma Tillman to talk about how the internet can be used to find someone you've lost touch with, whether it's a friend or family member or whoever. This is a valuable tool, isn't it?
I think 5 out of every 10 people I meet want to find somebody, so I know they're out there.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the website right now. Joe and I dialed this up a little bit earlier this morning. Here's the home page. What do we find here when we go to reunion.com?
We find lots of places. Everything that's, every word you see is a link to another place. All you have to do is go to a public library if you don't have a computer, and the librarian will show you. You just click on something, and it takes you somewhere else. There are over 400 links from this
States or
no, yes, in the United States.
Okay.
And it's since 1968 forward to this present
year. And I
year.
heard, is it the Mormon Library?
Yes, of course, the Mormon Church Library. It's a wonderful source for genealogical records, and they have a branch in almost every city. They have computers there where you can enter a name only and find anyone with that family name that ever died. Not only does it tell you when they died, it tells you when they were born, their social security number if they had one, and where the death benefit was paid.
oh my.
Wow.
So how expensive is it to hire, for example, you or any type of private detective?
Well, of course, different private detectives in different states charge different hourly rates, but an average search is about $500. A person can do it themselves.
Okay,
concerns a promise made on a battlefield, a debt of honor that was finally paid in full. Vietnam is far removed from the quiet tranquility of Saranac Lake, a village in upstate New York. But for one veteran, the war is just a memory away.
At times it's like being locked in a nightmare that nobody else will ever understand. War is not something that ever goes away.
Larry Robertson needed case-closed help in order to put that war behind him.
My name is Larry Robertson. My story is reference a debt of honor I owe to a fallen comrade in Vietnam, and I would appreciate any assistance you can provide.
1966, Vietnam. To the men of Charlie Company, 3rd Platoon, 28th Infantry, Lieutenant McCoy was more than a leader. He was a friend.
He was right there with his men, and it was the kind of example that early on in that war we needed. We needed men who would lead, and he did.
On February 28th, Lieutenant George McCoy entered a minefield to recover the bodies of 3 enemy soldiers killed during a Viet Cong attack. Larry had originally volunteered for the mission.
I had begged and pleaded and volunteered and got just everything short of insubordinate to have been the one to go out there in the first place. And he would not see it, would not hear it, would not allow it.
Then, as Larry watched horrified, the lieutenant stepped on a mine.
I actually felt the concussion of the explosion that killed him. That's how close that was.
Larry ran through the minefield to the stricken officer.
I was there to cradle him, and that's when he asked me to deliver a message to his family. And I promised him I would. And he died. There would never be another George McCoy.
Larry had made a promise he had to keep. But Larry would discover that making a promise is easier than keeping it. He contacted veterans organizations, registered with buddy searches, and went to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Larry also wrote letters to the Army Record Center and phoned state and national officials. But none of it brought him any closer to delivering his message. Compounding Larry's difficulties was a serious medical problem that made travel difficult, if not impossible.
I have degenerative joint disease, but I've not ever been real good at feeling sorry for myself. I just decided that I would set myself a new course and continue to go on to finding George's family and to put my own life back in order.
Larry couldn't find the McCoys alone. After his call, case-closed investigator Norma Tillman traveled to Saranac Lake to meet with her new client.
Did you know anything about where he was from?
No, I knew he was from the Midwest somewhere, but even the military records wouldn't give me that.
I felt like we were a team from the very beginning. I gave Larry the same promise he gave George, and I didn't intend to let Larry down. I didn't know how, and I didn't know where, and I didn't know when, but I knew it was going to be possible.
In order to begin the search, Norma went to Washington, D.C.
You have to know how to ask the questions, and Larry didn't know how to ask questions. He didn't really know what to look for. So therefore, no matter who he contacted or what he did, he was not going to get the information he was searching for. I went to all the federal buildings that had records that were available, and I really didn't come up with anything.
At the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, Norma looked up George's name in the casualty roster. It listed McCoy's hometown as Munster, Indiana. After leaving the wall, Norma went to Munster. She thought she was closing in.
I thought I was just going to go to Munster, drive out to this street address, which is no problem because Munster's not that big of a city.
But 30 years had changed the small Indiana farming town.
I tried dialing a few of the McCoys that were in the phone book, but they were not relatives. They didn't even know the family. But the last thing in the world I expected was that the street's not there.
Norma learned that the 14 acres once owned by George's family had been sold, and what was once rich farmland was now a field of tract houses. Norma let her client know about her difficulties. But by now, Larry had grown used to waiting.
The sensation and the feelings that go with the waiting are something I got very good at. I wait well, but I don't wait patiently.
As long as she was in Munster, Norma decided to take a chance. She went to the library to see if she could find George's obituary.
I was able to find an obituary, a death notice of Lieutenant George McCoy, and it gave the father's employer, which was Inland Steel.
Norma contacted Inland Steel and learned that George's father had retired in 1973 and passed away in 1986. They also gave her George's father's last
to a deadbeat dad, to a best friend, and she does it without breaking the law. She has a new book. The book is called appropriately, How to Find Almost Anyone, Anywhere. Please welcome Norma Tillman. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
How many people have you found?
Conservatively over 1,000. For the first
Really?
11 years, I looked for criminals, even the 10 most wanted. And then for the next 12 years, I looked for people who were not criminals, who were not wanted because they'd done anything wrong, just a father, a birth mother, sibling, best friend, and even someone's first love.
I've read that you enjoy doing the family reunions more than anything because of the emotion involved. But of course, let's ask the cynical question. Is there any group of people that you won't reunite, people that you won't get involved in their search?
I use a lot of discretion, and if the search doesn't sound right, of course, if my intuition says this doesn't sound right, feel right, look right, it's probably not right. It's for the wrong reason. But I do turn down searches for children or anyone under 18 years of age unless they're kidnapped victims. I will go look for someone who's been kidnapped.
But not just children who've run away.
Yeah, well, yes, if I have a request for that. It's children that...
You'll turn down children as clients, you mean?
I turn down children as clients, but I won't look for children if the mother has the child and she's supposed to have the child, the father's not supposed to.
Right, you don't get involved in those custody kinds of battles.
The custody type of battles, yes.
Okay, how do you do this? I know someone who recently found someone through the internet, so I can see, you know, going through all the names and addresses, but you said there are certain things that you really must know. Like
yes, with four basic pieces of information, you can find almost anyone, anywhere, and that's a name, a date of birth, a social security number, and a last known address. It's that simple, and most people have that information. If you have a name, you can find a birth record, a death record, a marriage license, a divorce record. If you have a name and date of birth, most states will give you a driver's license on that person if you just write to that state. With a social security number, you can write or call Social Security, and they can help you. And also an information broker, which I'll talk about in just a moment, can help you with a Social Security number. And a last known address, you can look up the tax assessor record to see who owns the property now and if they might be related to that person.
That's interesting. You know, Barbara brought up the internet, and I'm a little bit of a computer nerd, and I love the internet. I have to imagine that that's a fantastic resource right now.
Well, believe it or not everybody has access to the internet, of course, and it is a luxury, not a necessity. You can find someone with or without the internet or without a computer, but there are some free information resources on the internet. There is a site on the internet at www.reunion.com that has over 300,000 searches for missing persons. There's a very good chance someone in this viewing audience today is on there. And this, may I say one more thing? This site has links to many other sites that can lead you to, like if your missing person has a listed phone number, there's a free site to look up a phone number.
You know, all of this is very positive, but I think, for example, of people who don't want to be found, of people who are adopted, for example, and want to find the birth mother when the birth mother doesn't want to be found. And in cases where people do want privacy, isn't there a backlash to this?
Well, of course, you know, most birth parents do want to be found. They live with the unknown as well. They want to know if they made the right decision with this child and so on. But if you're prepared for whatever you find, the truth will set you free. It's the unknown that's bothering everybody. So even if a child is looking for a birth mother that doesn't want to be found, that's okay. They can live with that truth. It's the unknown that's causing
No, I'm
the
talking
problem.
about the person who doesn't want to be found.
The person who doesn't want to find, the number one fear of an adoptee is that the birth parent will reject them. So they're not going to bother that person. They're not going to knock on that door. They're not going to invade their privacy. This is just a myth more than it is a reality.
What about expectations? If someone wants to start a search like this, what should they be prepared for?
They should be prepared for whatever they find and have realistic expectations. Whatever they find, again, is better than the unknown. They can live with the truth, but the unknown, the void in their life, is causing them a lot of pain and a lot of anger, and that will go away when they find the truth, even if they're rejected or if the person they find is deceased, which sometimes is the case. That's okay. They're complete now, and they can go on with their life.
Well, let us hope so. Let us hope it always has that kind of positive ending. I do understand that you're going to reunite one of us.
A little surprise for one of you.
Tell us.
Today is your day, Debbie. We have a best friend from your childhood. Welcome today, Barbara Deaton from Norfolk, Virginia.
Barbara Deaton from Norfolk, Virginia. Come on out. Just win it. Tell us where is she?
Sit down. Sit over there.
Tell us who she is.
God, I feel like this is Jenny Jones.